Thank you. So a very good afternoon, respected Dr. Vandana Shiva ma'am, respected Principal Madam, Dr. Kamlesh Kaur ma'am, all the eminent faculty members of Mata Sundari College and students. I welcome you all on this online seminar on Eco-Feminism by Dr. Vandana Shiva ma'am, organized by Earthcon Society of Department of Environmental Studies, Mata Sundari College for Women. Today, we are honored to have Dr. Vandana Shiva as a guest speaker, and she will be speaking about ecofeminism. Let's begin the session by seeking blessing from Mata Sundari ji. I request everyone to cover your head.
शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो, शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो। शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो, शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो। देह शिवावर मोह है, शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो, शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो। शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो। देह शिवावर मोह है, शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो, शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो। शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो। न डरो और सो जब जाए लरोने से, कर अपनी जीत करो ने से, कर अपनी जीत करो ने से, कर अपनी जीत करो। और सिख हो अपने ही मन को, लालच हो गुण तो उचरो, लालच हो जब आव कियो दिन दान बने, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो। जब आव कियो दिन दान बने, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो। अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो। शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो, शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो। देह शिवावर मोह है, शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो, शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो। शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न डरो। और सिख हो अपने ही मन को, लालच हो गुण तो उचरो, लालच हो गुण तो उचरो, लालच हो गुण तो उचरो। जब आव कियो दिन दान बने, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो। जब आव कियो दिन दान बने, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो, अत हिरण में तब जूझ मरो। अत ही रण में तब जूझ भरो, अत ही रण में तब जूझ भरो, शुभ कर मन ते कब हो न ठहरो, शुभ कर मन ते कब हो न ठहरो। देह शिवा वर मोह है, शुभ कर मन ते कब हो न ठहरो, शुभ कर मन ते कब हो न ठहरो, कर मन ते कब हो न ठहरो, शुभ कर मन ते कब हो न ठहरो, कर मन ते कब हो न ठहरो, शुभ कर मन ते कब हो न ठहरो, शुभ कर मन ते कब हो न ठहरो।
So with the blessings of Mata Sundari ji, let's start this session. Eco-feminist activism may have grown out of the feminist and environmental movement of the 1970s, but it is here to stay. From teen climate activist Greta Thunberg to environmental feminist star Dr. Vandana Shiva. So it is girls and women who are taking the leads in the modern environmental and climate change movement across the world. Dr. Vandana Shiva needs no introduction. But I would like to give a very brief introduction to honor her presence. Based in Delhi, Dr. Vandana Shiva has written more than 20 books. She is often referred to as Gandhi of Grain for her activism associated with the anti-GMO movement. Dr. Vandana Shiva is one of the leaders and board members of the International Forum on Globalization and a figure of the anti-globalization movement. She is a member of the scientific committee of the Foundation Ideas, Spain's Socialist Party think tank. She is also a member of the International Organization for a Participatory Society. She received the Right Livelihood Award in 1933, which is also regarded as an alternative Nobel Prize. And Dr. Vandana Shiva played a major role in the global eco-feminist movement. According to her, a more sustainable and productive approach to agriculture can be achieved by reinstating the system of farming in India, and that is more centered on engaging women. So this is a very short brief of ma'am. Now I'd like to invite respected principal, Madam Professor Harpreet Kaur, to welcome our guest. First, I would like to brief about our ma'am. Ma'am has written almost 33 books.
No, I think this is not required. Uzma, it is not required.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, so ma'am, then over to you, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And I really accord a very, very warm welcome to Dr. Vandana Shiva. And personally, I have been really anxious about her lecture because I'm an admirer of hers. And of course, she is a role model for the youth. And all through, we have been reading her books also. And she has a long list of books. Talking environment, or rather I should say she's breathing environment. And I also believe that she's a rare combination of being an activist and academician, because having to your credit so many books of repute, I think that is marvelous. Ma'am, you're doing a marvelous job putting on record or whatever you are doing in the field. I think that is also very important for the posterity. And there is no textbook on environment which is does not have your name. Your name is mentioned there, and so basically environmental. If we talk about environmental movement, then of course there is no textbook which does not mention this Chipko Andolan. And this Chipko Andolan, the technique is very unique. And it is very indigenous to our roots. I think this kind of a technique was used by our own indigenous populace. And that is why these kind of things where we use for environment, whether it's the Jal Samadhis or other things, I think this is so basic to the Indian ethos. And you have really employed that in Chipko Andolan. And I think the world over, all the textbooks on environment has a mention of this. And so I really congratulate you for your work, ma'am. And you are really vocal about all the issues which are so very essential for the survival of humanity. We talk about the global public goods, but which is actually that access is not there. And so we should talk about the clean air, water, food. All these things are very important. I think all the things have mentioned in your talk, whether it is about biodiversity conservation, or the farmers' rights, or the women's rights. because women, I believe, are close to nature. And the very topic today is ecofeminism, where we know that the women basically is affected more, especially in the rural areas, where the women are so close to nature and have to use the resources of nature. And in case there is a crisis in the nature, then they are affected more than men. So I think the very topic, that is why we chose, because ecofeminism, so very, again, we call Mother Earth, and we call Mother Nature also. And it is there, that this core is there everywhere in our religious texts. And so if I just talk about background from Sikhism, Guru Har Rai once, he was a nature lover. And what happened is, one day, he just, when he was very young, one day he accidentally battered a flower in his garden. What happened with his whole long dress which he was wearing, chola which he was wearing, that flower accidentally was just fell on the ground. And he was deeply hurt by this incident. His father explained to him that nature has life as we do have life. And similarly, he became a nature lover, an intense lover of nature, preserver of nature. And he began to grow also medicinal herbs, herb garden. So we have the very mention of Pavan Guru, Pani Pita Mata Dhart Mahat. So this is enshrined in the Gurbani, where we are according a very important status to all the bounties of nature, whether it is Pavan or Pani or Dharti. In all these things we revere, we just pray to them, maybe maybe just to give an elated status, and we understand the importance of it. And I think this is what we are just losing today. And in the present times, Baba Seva Singh Ji, Kar Seva Wale Khadur Sahab, he has really used all those plants just to purify the water there. So same things can be done now also. And this is what is missing. We are going really far away from nature. And what we are doing is we are becoming so materialistic in our approach that our lifestyle is actually impacting nature. So somehow we have to change ourselves. And activists like you really can be a true inspiration. And I'm sure, ma'am, you will join us when things open up. We'll extend again invitation to you. And it was really wonderful when you speak in our auditorium, and the auditorium full of students will listen to you. And so thank you, ma'am, for joining. And I also thank my EVS department, Dr. Kamlesh, Uzma, and Kavita, and Prabhat, and also my students who have been so vocal, and they have been doing quite a lot. The EVS department has been very active in various things. We have won a lot of accolades also, and continue with the good work. So I welcome all the participants of today also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I'd like to invite respected Dr. Vandana Shiva, ma'am, to take over this session. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you very much, Uzma. And thank you, Dr. Harpreet Kaur, for that very warm introduction. I am very touched both by your words, but I'm also very touched with that beautiful prayer. I spent 4 years of my life in Mata Sundari Hall at the Punjab University when I was doing my MSc honors in particle physics.
Wonderful.
So those words mean even more to me now. I wish they had said those prayers while we were in the hostel. But it is so deep. And also, when you reminded us that here's Guru Nanak Ji reminding us, Mata Dharat Mahat, the great mother, not just the mother, the great mother. And in a way, both my activism and my thinking and my philosophy, and ecofeminism as a philosophy, is basically a philosophy to realize that deep concept of Mata Dharat Mahat, that the earth is living, as you said, Guru Har Rai Ji talking about nature is alive. Nature is alive. There's no denying that. All all spiritual teachers of every faith have taught that. There's not a single spiritual teacher who said nature is dead. Who said nature is dead? The colonizers said nature is dead. It's just property. You know, with one stroke of a pen, all the land of India was made property of England. We couldn't own land. Our religions didn't allow it. As it was said, Sabhi Bhumi Gopal ki, we had use rights. We didn't have property rights. We didn't treat land as a commodity. And that is why even today, the bond of farmers with the land is so deep. Because the British, by taking over the land, then created zamindari as a collection system for Lagan. And that is what left 45 to 60 million people in famine deaths. And the history of India is there to record. But then they jumped from there and made it look like we never overcame famine. Well, the minute we became free, the first thing we did is give priority to food. The first thing we did is start to correct the damages and inequalities of colonialism. And I hope your young students will learn about the beautiful Tebhaga movement, where when the 1942 famine took place, not because there wasn't enough rice. Amartya Sen has done a whole book on this. The rice was enough, but the extraction of Lagan was taking it all away to be traded for profits. More was exported that year while people were starving to death. And this is the reason we then created later the Essential Commodities Act. But one of our most beautiful movements was a woman-led movement called Tebhaga, because the British used to take half as taxes in cash. And the women said, take 1/3, Teen Bhag ka Tebhaga. And if you go to Bengal in the rural areas, you'll still see murals. Jaan debo, dhan debo now. We will give our lives. We will not give our rights. And Dr. Harpreet, you reminded us of this amazing power to say no by being willing to sacrifice your life. That is Chipko. That is the Tebhaga movement. That is what my sisters in Bhopal are still practicing. Thousands died on that night of 2nd December, 3rd December morning in 1984. Thousands died. Same year, where the Punjab farmers were rising and reminding us that the system of agriculture is wrong. It's reduced farmers to slavery. And they were asking for freedom. They said, what kind of system is it where you can't decide what you'll grow in your fields? Farmers of Punjab never grew rice. They were forced to grow rice. Now they're being blamed for growing rice because the water is disappearing. This, we can't decide the price at which we'll sell. We can't decide how we'll grow it. So these are all indices of slavery. Read my book, The Violence of the Green Revolution. Agriculture is not my field. Quantum theory is my field. Physics is my field. I turned to look at agriculture because of 84. It made no sense to me. 84 Bhopal made no sense to me. 84 Punjab made no sense to me. I said, how could Norman Borlaug get a Nobel Peace Prize when he had driven so many farmers to the edge? 30,000 people died in that period. Punjab, 30,000 people. Young people just disappeared. And then this anger, of course, didn't go away because the injustice didn't go away. The exploitation is still there. Now farmers are dying of suicide. 400,000. 400,000 have committed suicide since 94, 95, when we globalized the agriculture. So for me, what is ecofeminism? Ecofeminism is stopping the violence against the earth and stopping the violence against women. What are the roots of violence against the earth? The false assumption that nature is dead matter, only to be exploited. It is merely raw material. It has no value in and of itself. Contemporary economics says that, it's all raw material. A mountain has no value of its own. Trees in the mountains have no value of their own. It's when you cut a tree and turn it into timber to sell, or turn it into pulp, then it gets value. Even the language of value added is a language of exploitation, because the value is in the standing tree. Now, I got involved in Chipko as a young student, really, because I'm from the Himalaya. I grew up in the forest. My father was a forest conservator, and I've trekked these mountain forests. And before going to Canada to do my PhD, I wanted to visit a forest to take my Himalayan forest in my heart. I didn't know how long I'd be gone. And when I saw this forest was gone, oak forest had gone, and the river that came from the oak forest was a trickle, I felt very deep pain. And then I'm talking to the chaiwala at the dhaba while waiting for my bus back to Delhi. And the chaiwala said, but now there's hope. There's hope we'll be able to stop the deforestation because Chipko has started. I had no idea what Chipko was, but I decided to follow. And the first time I came back the next, and then I decided every summer, every winter, I would give my time and my life for protection of nature and supporting communities who are fighting for nature. So, we all have wonderful ways to make excuses. Oh, I'm studying. Oh, I'm teaching. Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm busy with so much. But you can always find time on the weekend. You can always find time in your vacations to do voluntary work. And especially your society dedicated to the environment must get involved in practical work of both protection and regeneration. So over those years from the early 70s to 81, when we got the logging ban, the Chipko movement, women would come out and their slogans were, we will hug the trees. And one more very powerful slogan, which is an ecological slogan, was, I remember it was 1977 in a village called Advani in the Tehri area, when you go up the Hemal Ghati, exactly the valley where I saw the forest go, where the slogan the women created was, this was a very beautiful moment because they came with lanterns during the day in their protest. And of course, the police was there, the forest officers were there, and they said, you stupid women, can't you see? The sun is out, you don't need lanterns in the day. And they said, the lanterns are not for the sun. This light is for you to see that these forests are not timber mines, that the main produce of the forest is not wood, it's not raisin, it's not profits. The main produce of the forest is mitti, pani aur bayar. Mitti, pani aur bayar jinda rehne ke aadhar. Mitti, soil, pani, water, and bayar is pure air, the oxygen we breathe. That's what the forests give us. And if, as students who are really keen on doing research, just do a little research on how, as we are getting into more climate extremes, which is part of climate change, every part is not equally impacted. Every flood in Uttarakhand, every landslide in Uttarakhand, every flood and landslide in Kerala is taking place where a forest has been destroyed. Every place. So the old slogan of Chipko has not become irrelevant, it's become even more important in times of climate change. I've written a book called Soil Not Oil to understand and explain that the reason we have climate change is just 200 years. We've started to forget the earth and live in a fossil civilization. And this 200 years of a mistake has given us pollution, greenhouse gases, and the terrible havoc. In Garhwal this year, we've lost 277 people. Every year, people are dying of floods. People are dying in a state like Kerala, which has beautiful rainforests. They've never had disasters. because the forests used to protect them. But as the forests are destroyed, a filmmaker called me yesterday from Kerala, saying, Didi, will you appear in a film I'm making on how the destruction of our forests is destroying our state? You know, it's called God's own country. But when you destroy God's own country, you're going to have absolute havoc. In that book, I've also written how an agriculture that takes care of Mother Earth doesn't just regenerate the soil, it produces more food. That's what we do in Navdanya, the movement I started. But it also is a big solution to climate change. We can pull out 10 gigatons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere annually if the country went organic. And our Prime Minister yesterday gave a long talk on how India should go organic, and we should take that message and make it real. That the chemicals were imposed on Punjab in 1965 under huge coercion. I've written about it in my book, The Violence of the Green Revolution. Our Prime Minister of that time, Lal Bahadur Shastri, never accepted it. You know, he was being bullied by the United States. And, we needed to import a little more wheat to stabilize prices. No one was dying of hunger, but the prices were rising because there'd been a drought. And he asked for a little more wheat to stabilize prices. And Mr. Johnson said, no, you will have to take the chemicals and change your agriculture. Then we'll give you the rice, the wheat. And Lal Bahadur Shastri, how can we experiment with such a huge country? Such an old history of agriculture. And then he died in Tashkent under very mysterious circumstances in a peace talk. We've never really had a true report on his death, but we do have record that he was not accepting the so-called Green Revolution, which merely is chemicals in farming. And the way the Prime Minister spoke yesterday said, why should we turn to chemicals from the lab when nature has given us all the soil fertility? These are things we all need to go deeply into. This is what I've spent the last 37 years of my life doing since 1984. Yeah, it's like having done 30 PhDs on agriculture, because I so love the earth. I so love and respect the work of our farmers, particularly women farmers. I work with women farmers. And, I have so many photographs where the men are spraying chemicals and the women are planting seeds at the other end, where the men are throwing urea and the women are making compost. So, there's like a world where women have kept alive the knowledge of nature as living, and therefore the knowledge of working with nature as living. So if we recognize that the earth is living, we will then work with love and care with the soil. That's what is organic farming. If we think nature is dead, then what we will do is abuse her with the same instruments which were used to violate people. For those of you who don't know the background, and I've had to study this in 84, but I've written a book, Who Really Feeds the World, and I have a chapter there, Women Feed the World, because women on small pieces of land grow most of the food. 80% of the food we eat in the world today grows on small farms and gardens. 1.3 billion Indians are being fed by the small farms. Small farms are more productive. Women's land use is much more productive. So in all of these years, I've realized this idea that we must destroy small farms to grow more food is wrong, that growing more food requires care for the earth. It requires more biodiversity. It requires much, much more intensity of nutrition. And our research has shown that we can feed 2 times India's population by conserving biodiversity, regenerating the soil through organic farming, and ensuring that the family growing the food eats, the community from where the food comes eats, local markets are strengthened, and the nation eats. The fact that 1.3 people are being fed is because our farmers are still growing food. And the beauty is Now, this 1 year when they were on the streets of Delhi, all they were fighting for was the right to feed the country. And women were there in such large numbers. It would be lovely if some of the students could do interviews with the women who were defending their right to be agriculturists, to be farmers, to be food growers. The Satyagraha, that was the forest Satyagraha of Chipko, actually had a preceding Satyagraha during British times. You might recall that Gandhi had fought against the salt monopoly laws, and he'd gone to the sea and picked up the salt water and said, nature gives it for free. We need it for our survival. We will not obey your law. We will continue to make salt. So when I found that the corporations like Monsanto wanted to own and patent seed, I took inspiration from Gandhi and said, these seeds we've received from nature and our ancestors, these seeds we have to hand over to future generations. And we have to protect them in the richness, the biodiversity, the purity, the integrity with which we receive them. This is the reason I started Navdanya. And Navdanya has two aspects. One is saving the seeds. We've created 150 community seed banks. And I hope your college will start a little community seed bank of herbs and nutritious crops and start a garden, something we work with in schools and colleges, gardens of hope. Organize yourself and then come to Dehradun, come to our farm and have a training for a weekend. And then you go back and start your garden. But do come for a weekend. I mean, the cars from Delhi are running all the time to Dehradun and Mussoorie. Please visit the Navdanya Beach Vidyapith, I call it, the school of the seed, learning from the seed, learning renewal from the seed, learning life from the seed, learning abundance from the seed. So if on the one side you have this worldview, which we call capitalist patriarchy. Capitalist patriarchy is the merger of greed as capitalism and the merger of patriarchal power, the false idea that men are superior to women. Capitalist patriarchy assumes nature is dead, women are passive and just objects and property. Ecofeminism is a recognition that nature is alive, that everything we have comes from the earth. And if we have to have enough food, enough oxygen to breathe, enough water to drink, then we have to take care of the earth because that's where it comes from. If we have to have water, we must stop destroying our mountain forests, as Chipko taught us. If we have to have enough food for all, we must stop destroying our rich agricultural heritage and grow the diversity that feeds us. New research is showing that diversity of crops replenishes diversity in the soil. Diversity in the soil creates more nutrition. More nutrition in your plants nourishes your gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome is 100 trillion organisms. The richer your gut microbiome, the healthier you are. That's where immunity comes from. During the lockdown, it's those who ate diverse food, organic food, local food, who were not victims. They absolutely survived COVID fine. Those who were vulnerable were those who were eating junk food, had diabetes, were eating these bad oils, and were having to now suffer all kinds of diseases. Just look around you. How many people have cancer? How many people have diabetes? How many people have kidney problems? These are issues of life and death. And another big part of my understanding is I wrote an essay. I was giving a lecture. I was on a lecture tour in Europe when this whole COVID thing burst. And I didn't want to get stuck abroad. So I rushed back. And on my flight back, I wrote a piece called Ecological Reflections on the Coronavirus. We had, just in the last 30 years of globalization, 300 new infectious diseases. They didn't exist before. Where did they come from? They came from the forests. Why? From the forest. The same violence that causes floods when we destroy the forest and the catchment, the same violence is displacing animals in the forest. And in a healthy ecosystem, everything is balanced, everything is in harmony. But in an imbalanced ecosystem, the viruses that are safe on the animals become infectious diseases for humans. It's not because the animals are spreading the disease, but we are invading into their homes to grow what? GMO soya in the Amazon. I had to do a Satyagraha in '98 before most of you were born, when they were trying to dump GMO soya on us. And I would like the young women attending to read the new FSSAI law draft notification. We don't have GMO food in India. They want to import GMO food. The processing industry wants to import GMO food. Please go to the FSSAI notification, read it. If you need guidance, write to me through your college. And let's build a campaign to tell the FSSAI we don't want GMO food, because in GMOs are chemicals, are Roundup residues, are glufosinate residues, glyphosate residues. Every GMO has antibiotic resistance markers. Every GMO has viral promoters. This is a lethal combination of disease-creating modification. You, our future generations, need healthy food. Our farmers want to grow healthy food. We have to now celebrate agriculture, not as an industrial activity. We have to celebrate it as a spiritual activity of the kind where Mata Dharat Mahat becomes the guiding force. And for that guiding force, women become the experts, because they're the ones who continue to farm that way, because women were growing food in their little kitchen garden to feed their children. The men were growing potatoes to sell to the market. They were growing GMO cotton to sell to the market. Men had been forced to turn towards the market. The women were turning towards the earth and to life. So ecofeminism is a philosophy of life, philosophy of the earth, philosophy of women's knowledge, philosophy of women's power, and the practice of all of this. It is a resistance to capitalist patriarchy, which has become a science of death. Every chemical in chemical agriculture its ancestors are Hitler's labs. IG Farben, who was tried in Nuremberg for killing people with chemicals. And they continue to sell the chemicals that are still killing people. There's a cancer train that leaves Punjab. Mata Sundari would not be happy. So let us start a campaign for organic India by 2030, that is poison-free, that is debt-free, that is suicide-free, that is hunger-free. For those of you who want to go deeper into this, come to the beach with your feet and spend time with us. For me, Chipko was my University of Biodiversity. We have a University of Biodiversity at the Navdania farm. We also offer courses. I will be offering a course around Women's Day on ecofeminism for 3 or 4 days, not 1 hour. Join us. Let's make a journey together to keep the visions of Mata Sundari and Guru Nanak Dev alive. Let us continue the journey of Chipko. Let us continue the journey of our beautiful ecological civilization, where we recognize the earth is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the family of the earth. And in this family, women have a very important role. You are the future leaders to make a transition. But you have to begin the transition with your everyday life, the food you eat, the clothes you wear. Don't get distracted by junk food and junk clothing. Think of how rich we are as a society. Play your role in being part of it. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to join you and celebrate the earth, celebrate women, celebrate Mata Sundari. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Can I take some questions from the participants?
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, dear participant, you are free to ask any question from ma'am. You can post your queries in the chat box and I will ask to ma'am. or I can unmute yourself also if you want any question. Yeah, dear participants. Yeah. I have allowed to all of you, just one by one, you can like unmute yourself.
Good evening.
One by one. Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, Dr. Kavita here from EVS Department, Mata Sundari College. Ma'am, I wanted to know whether our country has taken any initiative to stop these GMOs in our country, or they
Well, you know, we haven't allowed them. We fought for very long, but they're trying because the same. I know they want India as a market. For them, India is merely a source of raw material and markets. India is not a civilization. India is not a people. India is not the soil. India is not the land and the food and the seeds. So that's why I mentioned the FSSAI notification, which is an attempt to flood India with GMOs. You must stop it. Please go and read that notification and object.
Another question is from Akansha Dhiman. She is writing that how can we join you ma'am in journey?
Well, like I said, please come to the Beat Vidya Peeth. At any point, there are so many campaigns we run. We have a very strong campaign for youth in the protection of the earth. We call it Young Ecologists. Yeah, your chapter on the Environment Society should become a partner. I will make sure that my colleagues stay in touch with you. But the most important part is the journey today has to be a journey that defends our food, not just because we have to grow food in the right way to protect the earth, and the earth needs diversity. The earth doesn't want chemicals, to protect the farmers so that they are not in debt, and to protect you and your health, because the agriculture that takes care of the earth is an agriculture that takes care of your health. There's one health. So you need a food revolution, and you begin with yourselves. You can begin with your college. You know, I'm sure you can link to farmers. We can help you link to farmers. Start getting food directly from the farmers. Because if you don't get food directly from the farmers, you will get poison. Yeah. So, yeah, you know, the protection of the earth has come right to you through the food you eat. That's how you can join our journey. And if, you know, through your college, keep in touch, we'll keep in touch. And every time, but the most important is you've got to stop that FSSAI notification.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. Ma'am, next question is from Akansha. She is asking, ma'am, what do you think we can personally do about stopping violence against nature?
Yeah. So my work has taught me, you know, why did I end up working in agriculture? Because I realized that the single biggest harm to the earth is coming from industrial agriculture, way of farming with chemicals, and globalized trade where food is reduced to a commodity controlled by a few corporations. So the single biggest thing you can do is ensure you eat ecologically, organically, and as local as possible. That's why I keep talking about at least start a garden, but link to farmers. Where in Delhi are you based? Where is your college? Which part of Delhi?
Ma'am, it's near ITO, Central Delhi.
Oh, okay, okay. So you know, we could figure out a way by which, you know, for one, Navdanya, what I did is I worked with farmers to save seeds, because I said I will not allow Monsanto to own and patent the seed. I will not allow but now we have to sell it. So I said, I'll help you sell it. So I've helped create outlets for the farmers. They are direct from the farmers' fields. There's one outlet of Navdanya in horse cars. There's another in Noida. There's one small one in Dehradun. And we have the teaching and research farm. So start eating organic, but I think we need one response we must make is we must shift institutions. I've helped so many countries where colleges and schools and hospitals shifted to eating organic and local. Local means, okay, 100 miles from there where you are, 200 miles from where you are. And if Mata Sundari can work on a plan, and this false argument that organic is more costly. Why is organic more costly? Because chemical is subsidized. If all our money, goes to make high-cost chemical food cheap, of course it will be cheap. They subsidize the GMO soya oil in the ration shops. They subsidize palm oil in the ration shops. It's not cheap to produce. It's cheap because of subsidies. It's cheap because of monopoly. But also, it is true that, outside Navdanya, which is the only farmer-run organic system, most others are started because, if I sell organic, I can make extra bucks. A lot of it is for pure trade and business. Most of the people who open organic outlets are not working with farmers. We work day and night with the farmers. It would be wonderful if Mata Sundari says, we will procure directly from farmers. We'll bring the boris to you. It'll take time because overnight, farmers can't produce. But it would be lovely. I'd love to work on this with you. And for the young people who are at home, please go to the Navdanya outlet. And for those of you who want to make, we want to start, I don't want to do the Amazon nonsense. For me, Amazon is a big destroyer. We are starting an email order system that you can order through the net, but more, go to the shops. But more important, start moving your kitchen to fair organic food. Fair because it didn't exploit the farmer. It didn't exploit the earth. And we need innovation, and innovation needs effort. Exploitation is not innovation. Piracy is not innovation. I just saw a news item today that they're trying to undo the Biodiversity Act, in which I've had a role to play to protect our biodiversity. Why? Because the pirates don't like it, because they want to steal our biodiversity. Pattern the neem, pattern the bus. We fought them. These laws have helped us fight them. So defend the laws that protect the earth and resist those that would destroy, and eat in ways that the earth gets regenerated. That's in your hands to do.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Next question is, ma'am, organic pulses and grocery available in market is GMO free or not?
Organic must be GMO free. That's the law.
So next question is from Jasjot Kaur. Ma'am, do you think we should avoid eating exotic vegetables and fruits?
Well, if India was lacking in diversity, I would say, yeah, go look for something exotic. But there is no land which has so much diversity. And, we've had big debates with people. Oh, why don't you keep superfoods? So we asked the ladies coming into the Navdanya store, why don't you have quinoa? But I said, but we have our superfoods. We have the amaranth. Yeah, we have the changora. We have the mandua. So nobody has the level of fruits and vegetables India has. Main thing is, if you look at all the religions, and I'm sure you can find something in Guru Nanak Dev saying, don't get distracted by enticements. Yeah. So this exotic vegetable, I think a lot of our young people are thinking they're dressing exotic clothing when they're wearing junk clothing of H&M and Zara. Yeah. When we have the most beautiful handlooms in this country. And I'll tell you a little story. When we were 6 years old, they were bringing this, for the first time, the nylon fiber was coming into India. And everyone was wearing it because it was exotic. And when our mother said, what do you want? What kind of frock do you want? And my sister and I said, a nylon frock. So she said, well, I'll get it for you if you're desperate to have it. But remember, when you buy a nylon frock, an industrialist got his next Mercedes. When you wear khadi, a woman could feed her child at night. You make the choice. So when you think of exotic versus Desi, you make your choice.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, next question is from Ikisha Mehrotra. She is asking, ma'am, do you think patriarchy is having ill effects on the environment?
Of course it is. Patriarchy is having ill effects on the environment for a number of reasons, because it's patriarchal thought that allows us to imagine Mother Earth is inert and dead. That's the first level of harm. The second is that it has defined women, who are the true caretakers of the earth, as passive, as if their knowledge doesn't count, their work doesn't count, They've made it look like women don't work. You go to women in the census. What do you do? I don't work. They slog in the fields. They slog in someone else's kitchen. But their work is not counted as work. Their work is the most important work because it is care for the earth and care for society. So I'm building a whole new, I'm writing a new book on the economy of care to make women's work visible. Of course, patriarchy is violence.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Next question is from Amna. What are the good pointers for stopping the GMO draft?
Okay, I promise you I will write a quick note and send it to, and you all can build on that, right? I'll write a quick note.
Ma'am, if you have time, so we can go for more questions, if you have time.
5 minutes more, yeah.
Okay, so the next question, I think someone raised hand. Can you please raise again? Or you can put it in the chat box. 2 more questions are here. Ma'am, our country has a great population. Then how can farmers fulfill the need of population without using chemicals? If all we mold to pure agriculture product, as there are less place for cultivation due to the development of cities, what we can do?
Yeah, I think the rentless concretization of fertile soil, the most fertile soil of the world, is in the long run a very costly affair. We will pay a very big price for it because not only is it bearing the soil that would give us food, but it is mining the rivers. All the stones and all the sand that is going up in these highways and buildings is the life of the river. The river is an integrity of ecosystem. It has rocks and sand, and then the water is stored there. When you take it all out, you are stealing the space for the water to store. So we're going to have more drought. We're going to have more floods. And of course, we are going to have a very serious water crisis. When you ask me, how can we feed so many people? Well, that's why the 3 illusions of industrial agriculture and the myth of capitalist patriarchy, we have to shed it. First myth is small farms don't produce enough. All the data is showing that small farms are more productive. I have a whole book that was written as a textbook on organic farming, but let me just show you, here's the data of FAO. The smaller the farm, the more it produces. Global study all across the world. The smaller the farm, the higher the production. The smaller the farm, the higher the production. So it's not true that small farms don't produce. In fact, small farms produce more. That's why 80% of the food we eat comes from small farms. What do the idea that organic doesn't produce more? Why are they saying this? There are 2 mismeasurements. Number one, they measure the output of a commodity, not the food and nutrition. That's why I changed yield per acre to nutrition per acre. And when you measure nutrition per acre, the more dense you make your farm with biodiversity. That's why Navdanya means 9 seeds. Baranaja means 12 crops. We are a land which never grew monocultures. When you grow diversity, the crops help each other. It's called the land equivalence ratio, much higher when you grow diversity. So if on 1 acre of land I have 5 crops, I will need 5 acres to reproduce that. So you need more acreage to grow monocultures and commodities. The calculus of yield does not measure how much you put in terms of chemicals. It doesn't measure how much water you use. It doesn't measure how much land you use. It doesn't measure how bad the soil was. It doesn't measure the true picture. That's why I measure biodiversity-based productivity. And our research is showing that if you intensify biodiversity, you can feed 2 times India's population. And this is based on 200 real farms of Navdanya members. It's a report called Health Per Acre. Go to our website. Go to the website of Navdanya, NAVDANYA. Look at the courses we are offering, but especially the long course we offer every September, October. and the short courses too, but also look at our publications. Health per Acre is available for free download. Please read it and you will understand that it is not true that chemical farming is necessary to feed the world. In fact, chemical farming is the reason we have a malnutrition crisis, because we can't live on rice and wheat alone. You need your dals, you need your vegetables, you need your proteins, you need your amino acids, you need your micronutrients. And our research has shown that in chemical farms, the micronutrients are collapsing. The zinc has gone down 44% in 20 years in our valley, and it's gone up 27% in organic farms. Every nutrient is collapsing, and organic farming builds up the nutrients. It's micronutrients you need for a healthy body to function. Yeah, we are not a machine run on a fuel called food. We are a living organism, and a living organism needs all the matching organisms and biodiversity to be in a healthy state. So we must start looking at food and ecology in our body much more ecologically and much less mechanically.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I don't know whether you remember or not. I think I was my first interview was with you at your place at Hoskas. I don't know whether you remember or not. When I came to Delhi, I met you. I was the first, like the interview with any organization was your organization.
Okay, wonderful.
I met you at your place at Hoskas.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting our request.
Yeah.
Just few minutes more. Now I'd like to invite our respected Dr. Kamlesh Kaur, ma'am, for the closing remark and vote of thanks. Ma'am, over to you. Ma'am, unmute yourself, please.
I have attended so many presentations and it is the best out of that. And ma'am, it's a wonderful, insightful presentation. Your enthusiasm persuades us to work for nature, for forest, for women, and to stop this malnourishment. I have written so many points, but I won't take a lot of time. And I ensure that we will work, EVS department will work to start something on this seed bank. We have the manpower, our students will work. And ma'am, as you told us, I learned from your talk that mitti pani aur bihar zinda rehne ke asar. That is true. That is true. Many true things you are telling. And I have the experience that I go to Green Go to purchase my grocery. There, most of the things are organic. I purchase the pulses. He tells me the rate. Ma'am, organic de do. When I purchase the organic pulses, you see, boiling time of organic pulses is very less. And their taste is also much different than the chemicals one. No doubt, 20% price is there. Even same with the vegetables and the fruits. And it is better to have the things which are organic, even though we are paying something more. We should go for it. And they have organic bananas also. They are much different than the normal bananas, which are being sold in the market. And so far you told us GMO food. And in front of our college, this FSI office is there. And we attend their meetings, and there I'll tell them that we have learned, we have heard from this Vandana Shiva, and you people are doing like that. And we should do, being in educational institution, an institution, Mata Sundari belonging to Punjab side, and what we should go for organic. We should club our hands with these farmers. And as you are saying, the smaller the farm and more products are there, more nourishment is there. The farmers were demanding only that. They never wanted that government to club their all the farms and have the big farms and have the farmers. It means the farmers were very right in their protest. And so far, these biodiversity, we should go for that. And with you, so many things I get persuaded, and we'll be working, and we'll be persuading our students. And I think we should also go for the Google form for the students, asking them, those who want to join this Vandana Shiva's projects, And we'll ask you, give us detail, black and white, and all the details and spreading among the students. And definitely, ma'am, I'm really persuaded my students, my teachers, my principal, and if we would have your talk physically in the college, we would have been more happy. But we learned a lot, whatever you told us. Thank you. So nice of you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.